Chapter 5 Frankenstein Meets the Creature. Even though I knew that the blood was flowing freely in my veins, I felt more dead than alive. A weight of despair and remorse pressed on my heart. Sleep fled from my eyes. I wandered like an evil spirit, for I had done something horrible in creating this monster. Yet my heart was filled with kindness and the love of virtue. I had begun life with good intentions. I had wanted to do something good for my fellow human beings. Now all was destroyed. No words can describe the torture and guilt I felt. This state of mind preyed upon my health. I stayed away from people, wanting only to be alone. All signs of joy were torture to me. My father saw with pain how I had changed. He tried to get me to dispel the dark cloud that hung over me. "Do you think, Victor," he said, "that I do not suffer also? No one could love a child more than I loved your brother." Tears came into his eyes as he spoke. "But is it not our duty to help one another to get on with life? It is also a duty owned to yourself. Too much sorrow makes a person unfit for society." This advice, though good, did not apply to my case. My father could not know that terror was a part of my sorrow. I could only answer my father with a look of despair and try to hide myself from his view. About this time, we retired to our country house. This change was good for me. The shutting of the gates of Geneva each night at 10 had been very annoying to me. Now I was free. Often, after the family had retired for the night, I took the boat out. I would pass many hours upon the water. Sometimes, with my sail set, I was carried by the wind. Other times, after rowing into the middle of the lake, I simply drifted. I was often tempted to plunge into the silent lake, let the waters close over me, and end my troubles forever. The only thing that stopped me was the thought of how much Elizabeth would suffer. I thought also of my father and my surviving brother. How could I leave them exposed and unprotected to the evil of the fiend whom I had set loose among them? I lived in daily fear that the monster would appear again. I had a feeling that all was not over and that he could commit an even more terrible crime. There was always room for fear as long as anything I loved remained behind. When I thought of him, my hatred grew. I would have climbed the highest mountain if, when there, I could have thrown him to the base. I wished to see him again so that I could avenge the deaths of William and Justine. Our house was a house of mourning. My father's health was deeply shaken. Elizabeth was sad and melancholy, unable to take any pleasure in life. She said, "I know that William was murdered, and I know that Justine was innocent. The murderer still walks about the world free and perhaps respected. I no longer see the world in the same way. I am beginning to think that there is no justice." I listened to her words with extreme agony. I, not in deed but in effect, was the true murderer. Elizabeth saw the anguish in my face. She took my hand and said, "Dear Victor, the look on your face makes me tremble. Remember the friends around you. Have we lost the power to make you happy? Ah, while we love, while we are true to each other, what can disturb our peace?" Not even Elizabeth could chase away the fiend that lurked in my heart. Nothing, it seemed, could save my soul from woe. I decided to leave my home for a while and seek comfort in the beauty of nature. I went to the valley of Ch. I had visited it frequently during my boyhood. I hadn't been there for 6 years. I had changed it drastically, but nothing in those savage and enduring scenes had changed. I traveled on horseback and later by mule. The weather was fine. It was the middle of August, nearly 2 months after the death of Justine. The beauty of the mountains was breathtaking. The sound of the river raging among the rocks and the dashing of the waterfall spoke of a mighty power. The winds whispered in soothing accents. However, even this power and beauty could not make me forget my horror and despair. At length, I arrived at the village of Chamonix. I rented a room, and as soon as I placed my head upon the pillow, sleep crept over me. I spent the following day roaming through the valley. Although the beautiful scenery did not remove my grief, it calmed me down a little. That night I slept well, and the next day I decided to climb the nearby mountain. I went without a guide, for I was well acquainted with the path. Another person would only have destroyed the solitude I was seeking. The mountain was steep, but the path was cut into short windings so that the climb was not too difficult. The biggest danger was that, in some places, the slightest sound, such as speaking in a loud voice, could cause an avalanche. It was nearly noon when I arrived at the top. I sat on a rock and gazed at the wonderful scene below me. My heart, which had been so sorrowful, now swelled with something like joy. Just then I saw the figure of a man climbing toward me. He was moving with superhuman speed. He bounded over the ice where I had walked with such caution. His size seemed larger than that of a man. As soon as he came closer, I saw that it was the wretch whom I had created. I trembled with rage and horror. He approached, his face expressing bitter anguish. His ugliness was almost too horrible for human eyes. "Devil!" I exclaimed. "Do you dare approach me? Do you not fear my vengeance? Begone, vile insect, or rather stay, so that I may trample you to dust. If only that would restore the victims whom you have so wickedly murdered." "I expected such a welcome," said the creature. "Everyone hates the wretched, and I'm the most wretched of all. Yet you are my creator. It is your fault that I am so wretched. You are bound to me until death. You want to kill me? How dare you sport thus with life? Do your duty to me, and I will do mine to you. I have something to ask of you. If you do it, I will leave you and the world at peace. If you refuse, I will kill your remaining friends." "Hated monster, come closer so I may put out the spark of life I so foolishly gave you. Be calm, I beg you to hear me out. Have I not suffered enough? Life, even though it is full of anguish, is dear to me, and I will defend it. Remember that you have made me stronger and taller than you. You wouldn't have a chance against me. However, I have no wish to harm you. I am your creature, and you owe me something. Oh, Frankenstein, everywhere I see happiness that I alone cannot have. I was good, but misery made me a fiend. Make me happy, and I shall again be good. Begone! We are enemies, and I shall never do anything to help you. How can I make you understand? You are my creator, and yet you hate me. What hope can I get from other people who owe me nothing? They reject and hate me. You are my only hope. Listen to my tale. Even the guilty are allowed to speak in their own defense before they are condemned. You accuse me of murder, and yet you would destroy your own creature. Hear my tale. It is long and strange. It is too cold for you out here, so let us go to the hut on the mountain. The sun is yet high in the heavens. Before it sets, you will have heard my story. Then it will be up to you. Either I will lead a harmless life away from people, or I will become the most dreaded enemy of your fellow creatures." As he had said this, he led the way across the ice. I followed. As I walked, I weighed the various arguments he had used. I decided at least to listen to his tale. I was curious and at the same time compassionate. For the first time, I felt what the duties of a creator toward his creature were. I thought that I ought to help him to be happy before I complained of his wickedness. Soon we entered the hut, the fiend with an air of joy, I with a heavy heart and sad spirits. But I agreed to listen. I sat by the fire that the creature had lighted. He thus began his tale.